This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News, news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much for joining in Rainbow Push. I'm happy to be here with you one more Sunday night. It's been a blessing it's always a blessing to come and share with you and to entertain your questions and your comments. The push is on. You know, I can't go into this program without thanking Mr. Art Gilliam for allowing us this time here on WLOK, this wonderful station, to come into your spaces wherever you are. We have been here. We are the oldest running program on this radio station since 1977. And for those of you who don't remember the story or never knew the story, we were on the air prior to Mr. Gilliam purchasing the station, and some of the advertisers thought that Rainbow Push Memphis was too radical, and they threatened to withdraw their dollars if Push was not put off the air. And that is what happened. However, as soon as Mr. Gilliam purchased the station and changed it from R&B to gospel, he put Rainbow Push right back on, and we've been here ever since. So our thanks are always given to him. We are so grateful to him. I want to give a shout out to our current president, Mr. Joseph B. Cowles, as well as our immediate past president, Reverend Lucemba Gray, who you heard last week. He's still involved, and we do appreciate him for being here with us. Tonight we are a bit sorrowful. We want to be in sympathy for the family of Horace Julian Bond, who passed away on yesterday, on Saturday. And, he was the founder of what we call SNCC. And he was, I think most people remember him as chair of the NAACP. That might be the greatest thing. But I do have guests tonight, and I do want to introduce, first of all, Mr. Clarence Christian and also Mr. Ron Hurd. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Good evening, sis.
Okay. I was talking about Julian Bond, and I know Clarence had some history in his head about Mr. Julian Bond, just a spokesman for the truth and an advocate for justice, social activist, leader in the civil rights movement, politician, professor, and writer.
All of that and more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very profound, he's contributed so very, very much to, not only to, what do you say, Clarence, we are now African Americans,
But
but to the whole country, actually.
Absolutely. I think what we know about Julian Bond is that he was intellectual enough to understand that all of us are inextricably tied to each other. And so that he was a diplomat, yet he was an activist, he was insightful, he was a scholar. I guess we call them academic scholars in the tradition of Frantz Fanon and Du Bois and other people. Julian was smart. Mm-hmm. He was real smart. When I say smart, no matter what the situation was, if you were in it with Julian, he had a plan if we needed one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And like I said, most people might remember him through the NAACP. And but it's that's the importance of why you all are here tonight. Our history. A lot of people, we see a person in one avenue or one venue, and we think that's all they did. But then when we really delve into, and if you don't remember him, I think it's good, especially for our young people. We talk about, of course, President Barack Obama being a great role model for African American children or Black children. We don't have to go all the way back to Sojourner Truth to find examples, but if we really study our history, we will know that we are people of value.
Absolutely, and I think that we are here representing, of course, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, the organization that was founded by Carter G. Woodson, and that was Mr. Woodson's basic reason, or as we say, the raison d'etre for founding this organization. He understood that truth could crush falsehood and usher in a new day when people will understand each other better, and it will usher a new day for race relations, but more importantly, pride on the part of those who had been despised. And so that's why we're glad to be here this evening and to share with you, Ms. Thompson.
Okay, give us the name of that organization again, and then give us your your acronym.
Okay, it was historically called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. Of course, now it's called the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Founded in 1915 by Carter G. Woodson and Mr. MOOR. It was founded at a time, of course, when most people in this country didn't think that we had any history. That African Americans had not contributed anything to this country, and there was nothing that we had that was worth recording or duplicating. And if you look now, 100 years later, it is without a doubt that African Americans have contributed much to the rich fabric of the United States and to this whole world. And that's the story we need to tell. We need to understand.
Right. And you know what? This when I saw the email, I just immediately thought I've got to get somebody on to talk about this, because as we visit with Rainbow Push week by week, of course we want to continue talking about get out and vote. We need to do that. Get registered, go vote, and the importance of that. And we talk about the things that are going on in our community and in our world as well. But as we also talk about Black Lives Matter,
yes,
we have to understand ourselves first that we do matter. And then the way we behave will show that to other people. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that this new movement is going to be a historic movement. It's going to have significant consequences if the trend continues. And I think you're absolutely right about that, is that many times we do not understand our history. Many times we do not understand how we got to be in the situation that we're in. And sometimes we think that is how it's always been. But if you get some understanding about where you come from, how you got into the situation, you have at least some insight into how I possibly can move beyond this particular moment into a more pleasant moment for all of us.
Right. And Mr. Brownhurd, you can chime in at any time you want to. As Clarence was just mentioning, from whence we came, I can always remember Reverend Samuel Billy Cowles, who is the founder of Rainbow Push Memphis, and he would frequently tell the young people, you did not come from slavery. You came from kings and queens. And we have to, and sometimes the teenagers would say, oh, here we go again, talking about this old stuff.
Yeah, I was recently. I'm glad you chimed in. I'm gonna chime in on that. I was recently down in Montgomery, Alabama. We got the 60th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycotts coming up, which happened on December 1st, 1955. It lasted for 381 straight days, and it changed the world. But I was down there. I was talking to an educator from Chicago. It was at a meeting with educators, and she was talking about how, as being a black woman, as being a teacher in Chicago, she was tired of telling her kids about the history of slaves. I had to correct the sister. I said, sister, those wasn't slaves. They were scientists. They were engineers. They were architects. They were musicians. These were people that built civilizations they brought over here. They brought the right folk when they brought the boats over here. And I know jazz great Randy Weston, I talked to him before. He said, Ron, people must realize that America is Africa.
Okay. And when you said that, there's one thing I remembered. I forgot who said it, but I thought about it, that as we influence, as we talk about the inventions of black people or African Americans, that the first indoor toilet was in Egypt.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
The first police.
Yeah.
Egypt.
Yeah, that's true too.
And that'll get us back to, I think, one of the quotes, and Carter G. Woodson, the founder of this organization, was profound and had hundreds of many writings, but hundreds of quotes that people continue to use. And one of his most significant quotes that I think that he said was, if you leave it to one group to extol the virtues of all groups, it won't be long until only that group will have virtue.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which means that if we don't tell our own story, then after a while we might not have a story. And you cannot depend on other people to tell your story.
That's right.
If we want the world to know, we must tell it ourselves.
It's kind of like, and I'm kind of churchy, but this is a gospel station.
Right.
When you think about the Dr. Watt hymns and all of those, that if we don't teach them to the children, they won't know them, of course. And then some other group is going to get them. and remix them
Right.
and make money with them.
Yes.
And so they can do the same thing with our history, but it was neglected before, and it can very well be distorted
Right.
if left to other people.
Yeah, and it gets to another quote. He says this: "A people without a history is a people subject to extinction."
Okay.
Profound. He always profound. And so I think that is why today we are happy about what's coming up with this association. We call the association by its acronym ASALH. Of course, and it stands for, again, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And this year is the 100th anniversary of ASALH. In fact, September the 9th is the birthday of the organization. And ASALH, the national organization, is located in Washington, D.C., but there are chapters or branches across this country in major cities and towns. And many of those towns and cities will be celebrating. In fact, here in Memphis on September the 9th, we have a big event coming up, and we certainly want to share with your audience what we're going to be doing here in Memphis as it relates to ASALH's birthday.
Okay. Well, and I like that ASALH because it sounds ethnic. And you mentioned the other chapters. I think it's important for people to know. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to call in and join this conversation, the number is 901-888-6805. But it's important, I think, for people to know that this isn't something that just Memphis is doing.
No.
Because we get such a bad name. We're the worst here and worse than there. But if it's just Memphis doing something, but this is nationwide.
This is nationwide. This is and of course the organization has been celebrated from the White House all the way down. I don't know how many people might realize this or not, but as I said earlier, when this organization first began, there was a period just before World War I when here in this country people really felt that African Americans were not contributors to this country, but a threat to this country. And so I think this organization has done more to change America's perception, particularly of African Americans, and to enhance race relations than any other organization in this country.
Yeah, Clarence, I remember reading about this, but I kind of lost track. But I think it's still kind of what we call one of the best kept secrets. Let's get a couple of callers. Caller, thank you for listening to Rainbow Push Memphis. You're on the air.
Yes. Well, that's on my radio down.
Please, Ms. Jones, thanks.
A little bit. All right. I'd like to say this, sir. Africa is not American. America is not African. I'm sorry, America is not Africa. Africa is Africa by itself. And America is America by itself.
Okay.
Christ brought America into existence.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Caller, you on the air.
Hey, Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Hey, Ms. Thompson. I didn't quite understand that lady, but this year I have me and a couple of friends. Well, right now I'm reading a book on Beale Street Dynasty. And, when we were in power, we had our offices and doctors, agents, and dentists. I got my hair cut on Beale. You could shoot a little pool. So we passed down, me and a couple of friends, we was in the car yesterday. We know it's the Ellis week. So we passed down there and everything blocked out, nothing but white tourists. I said, they got Beale Street now in their history. Ellis. Beale Street belongs to Elvis. They got Elvis up front on Beale in Maine and W.C. Hanley. You have to search for him. So I said that's taking away history too. Got little white kids in the park. Elvis Cove, they call it, right across from where the bank used to be. I said, well, they taking all that too. They got Graceland and we let them do things, Just like that statue there, Elvis, with the guitar, Maine and
okay,
Beale.
caller.
And then they got Graceland. I said, well, they're taking it all. And they're bringing their children up to say that Elvis was the king of the blues and all that. You're pretty sure he was the man. He controlled Beale Street. They won't know any better, but they take history all the time from us.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I want to thank the caller for bringing up Elvis because today is actually the 38th anniversary of his passing, August the 16th, 1977. This is also the same day, August 16th, is also the day that Babe Ruth died in 1948, and also blues great Robert Johnson died August the 16th, 1938 from Mississippi Delta. He brought up Elvis. I think it's interesting because what I tell people all the time is that behind every great white man is a great black mentor that he stole from.
Exactly.
Now, Elvis, he was a big fan of Ike Turner.
Right.
You know, and people don't know about Ike Turner. Ike Turner was a music genius. I mean, we get this bad rap from this movie that was overhyped and over exaggerated. But Ike Turner was the talent scout, for Sun, for Sam Phillips, business. And he was the talent scout. He arguably made the first rock and roll album called Rocket 88 with Jackie Brinston back in the 50s, which people might think is the first rock and roll song. But what I'm saying with that is that you look at, for example, a person like George Gershwin, who's a very celebrated composer. His teacher was a black man named Lucky Roberts, stride piano player, and also real estate mogul up in New York. Then you look at somebody like Hank Williams Sr. His master teacher was Rufus Payne, a black man down in Alabama. Matter of fact, the Grand Ole Opry created a huge monument in his honor in the cemetery where he's buried. So we don't know who we are. Like I said, the sister said Africa is not America, America's not Africa. That's dead wrong, because who they brought over here was the master builders of civilization. I just told you, like on July the 10th of this year, when they pulled down the Confederate flag in South Carolina, people don't realize that ASALH's longest serving president, Mary McLeod Bethune, was born on July 10th in South Carolina. She started one of the most successful HBCUs with just $1.50 in the bank, Bethune-Cookman University, and she served for ASALH for 18 years. So we don't know our history, so we got to amplify that narrative and tell those stories.
But we also have to understand that that space does not create independence. That people, that we are connected no matter where we are across the world, and the fact that those who built this country, who literally physically built this country, were people who came out of Africa, and that much of what is indigenous to what is considered American culture or U.S. culture, because this is really not America, this is the United States of America. U.S. culture really came out of the African tradition. So to say that something is that things are independent, have no connection to each other, I think it's really to miss the point. Almost everything in the universe is connected in some way.
Exactly. Okay. Caller, you on the air. Thank you for being patient.
Good evening, Ms. Thompson.
Good evening.
Hey, I'll be brief. I want to speak to these historians. On a more current topic, this movie, Straight Outta Compton, have you had a chance to view this new movie? I haven't seen it, but I know there is some tension and some controversy about it. I was here when it was fresh and all of it was going on, when they first introduced that genre of music. And some of them say that the gangster rap style came from that particular group and a few others. And I'm wondering, is this a good thing or what? What's your take on the whole thing? Is it something beneficial for us or is it something that may hurt us?
It's an awakening. Okay, Mr. Hurd is going to respond. Thank you for your call.
I actually saw the movie on opening day. I couldn't wait to see it because I'm a rap fan, and one of my first songs or albums I didn't buy, my uncle brought it, was NWA back in the day. It was over 20-something years ago. But I think what is important to learn about that story is the fact that we must tell our own stories, because Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and other people who was involved in that story was involved in the telling of that story, and they amplified it, and they brought it to the studios, they brought it to the big screen. So kudos for them on that. But also, the movie is well made, it's a great story, but my thing with movies is not the final word or say on anything. It should get you more excited about researching the backstories behind the backstories. And I want to say about the gangster rap thing, which is interesting. I would say it started on the East Coast. You got KRS-One, one of the great rappers of all time with Boogie Down Productions. Then you got a brother out of Philadelphia named Schoolie D. He was arguably the first prototype for the gangster rap thing. And then it spread to the West Coast. And I always tell people the NWA became successful through underground word of mouth, because they were selling stuff out the trunk and was able to move like 2 million copies before they got on the radio. And I always tell people you could break hip hop down to like this: BC, before Chronic, when Dr. Dre released the Chronic on Death Row. It changed everything, because before Chronic came out, you had all types of genres of rap represented on the radio. You had Queen Latifah, Public Enemy, X-Clan. Everybody was on the radio waves. But then when the gangster rap stuff came out with Death Row and all that stuff, it became AD, after Dre. Before Chronic and after Dre, as in Dr. Dre, it changed everything. And music does control people's minds. Don't make no mistake about the vibrations, the frequencies, the notes. It's sophisticated. It's sophisticated.
Okay.
Now, as to whether or not rap music is good or bad, I think that there's no final word on that. But I think that what we have to understand, and I think that many people are reacting to the fact that the people who participated in the production of the movie were not your typical Hollywood producers, and so naturally they're going to have that. Now, another thing too is that historically, and this is one of the things that Dr. Woodson and those who worked through ASALH across the years was trying to help people understand. Just because it is something that comes out of the African American community or African American tradition doesn't make it dangerous. What makes it dangerous is the fact that we're still holding on to stereotypes. Now, I understand that each generation has its own thing. I'm an old man, and we do sometimes worry about the styles, the language, the structure of music and its impact. And so, yes, whether it's good or bad, whether rap is good or bad is left to your decision. But let us not be fooled by the fact that many people are reacting to this simply because of who it is coming from.
And I also want to add, too, 100 years ago is very significant, not only for the founding of ASALH, but 100 years ago you had a movie called The Birth of a Nation come out, which reestablished the Ku Klux Klan. And also 100 years ago, Booker T. Washington died under mysterious circumstances, let's put it like that. And also 100 years ago, you had the formation of the Fraternal Order of Police. So you had a couple of things happen 100 years ago that affect us to this day. And propaganda is very important in that effectiveness.
And I'm hoping that those of you who are listening, if you've never seen Birth of a Nation, it is worth the ticket to go and find a copy of that movie and to view it. Because it was one of the most dangerous, most poisonous pieces of propaganda about the African American that one could ever see. It portrayed us as if we were buffoons. I remember distinctly one scene in the movie where the black elected officials there in Congress, while the legislature was in session, rather than sit and ponder and legislate, they were eating chicken and throwing chicken bones and their feet up on the table and trying to pass they're trying to pass all kinds of but it was a mockery of the African American. But more importantly, it was what most of America felt about who we were. It was a justification for holding us in slavery and for our incarceration.
And you see that online, and also the first Grand Wizard of the KKK is buried on Union Avenue in our city. Just blocks away from where they killed Dr. King, where they ran Ida B. Wells out of town.
Exactly. And since you mentioned that, this past week, the week before, someone went and sprayed Black Lives Matters on the concrete base.
Yes.
And I had kind of like a feeling like it's demeaning to us for someone to do that. It's vandalism, yes. But I can understand why some people might feel that they need to do that, because we've been trying to get Rainbow Push Memphis tried to get that statue back in the 70s.
Right.
Yes.
And there have been other, several efforts, but it took the lives of 9 innocent people. But to really, come into, I guess, sharp focus that this is wrong. But I think it's kind of like the retaliation on the police, because the police have been killing our black unarmed men.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean that we should go and kill the police. So it doesn't mean that we should go in and deface something out of retaliation.
Right. Well, what you have is people who are frustrated.
Yeah. And angry.
Because that's the essence of being frustrated. You don't know what to do. You try to get things done legitimately, and then things sometimes move so slowly for you that you have people in the masses who will rise up and do what they see in on heads to do, and so you're going to have those kinds of acts, and sometimes it might push those people who are more moderate in their understandings to move faster, because that there are times when the moderates won't move unless they're made to move.
And that's true too. But I guess I was looking at it from the standpoint that when they find out who did this, it's really going to be retaliation
Yes,
then.
yes.
Well, I think it's interesting too if you think about what happened back in 1892. Ida B. Wells' friend Thomas Mouse and his colleagues at the People's Grocery Store, they defended their property and their lives against a white mob, and then they found out they shot a couple of deputies in the crowd in the mob. They turned their guns in. They were lynched, mercifully so, by the white mob and white power structure. But also, what I'm concerned about, we're talking about Confederate monuments and statues being vandalized. The black church has been under attack.
Yeah.
Because you look at June 17th in Charleston when they killed those 9 lives. They took those 9 lives. You also look at the almost 10 black churches that were burnt.
That's right.
And also you look at the fact that Sandra Bland was arrested and assaulted a Hope AME church on Prairie View AME ground. Then the brother Darius Stewart on July the 17th of this year getting killed on the grounds of New Direction Church by the MPD. And it's been like a dead silence, it seems. Like, it's crazy to me. The black church is very silent right now.
And this is not the first time the churches have been attacked.
No, I think that early on, as you know, many people felt that it was a church that was bringing about these insurrections. Particularly certain churches, particularly the AME church.
That's right.
And a few other churches where you had enlightened leadership. Those churches were constantly on attack, even those that were not actively involved in trying to bring about justice in this country. They were seen as a threat. Just like any African American, because one of the things about history I always tell my students is that we have always felt that education, enlightenment, helps you to understand where you are in the world, what your situation is, and how to deal with it. And Frederick Douglass said the day that he learned to read was the day he found he was a slave. And so what you have is people being threatened. Because first of all, they said that African American, the Negro could not learn to read or write. He was not quite human. And then when they saw that was false, they then made laws that said if you learn to read or write, we're gonna kill you, and we're gonna kill anybody who helps you learn to read and write. So even in the contradiction, they didn't see that as a contradiction. All they saw was here is somebody that we don't understand, who doesn't look like us, and he or she is a threat.
Right, and they're powerful enough that if we allow this to happen, they're gonna take over. They're gonna take our jobs.
Absolutely.
They're gonna bury our daughters.
All of them, and see that sex and racism in America is something we don't discuss very much at all. Calvin Harrington back in the 70s wrote a seminal work on sex and racism. When he talked about that, and of course, you know what they did with Frances Cress Welsing when she wrote her piece. They threw her out of the American Psychological Association, saying that she was mentally ill and she was a racist, because she was talking about that very same issue, how sex and racism are intricately intertwined.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to join the conversation, our number is still 901-888-6805. I know we're talking about our key focus is this inaugural event for ASALH. However, you don't have to be in Memphis, Shelby County to join this conversation. And I'd like to just invite our friends, especially in California and Virginia and other places who call in from time to time. This is a conversation that is for the global community.
Yes, and in fact, talking about the global community, one of the things that, if you look at ASALH's mission, their mission is to research, write about, and disseminate information about African American history, life, and culture to the global community across the world. Because at one time in history, we were not entered into the history books. We were not even entered into the American consciousness. And so what Mr. Woodson wanted to do, and what those who have been struggling in ASALH across the years wanted, was to ensure that the African Americans' contribution to this country were in the American conscious. And we've coming out of ASALH, the first thing that he did was he wanted to have what we call a time to celebrate the achievements of African Americans. So about 11 years after the founding of this organization, he founded Negro History Week. And of course, and then in 1976, Negro History Week became African American History Month. And so when we talk about ASALH, we are talking about the founders of African American History Month. They give us an annual theme every year. that we can revolve around in terms of using a vortex for discussions on African American history. And then, of course, he went not only about organizing, but he also founded a publishing company and did the first major journal on African American studies. And then, of course, went by and wrote what we call the Negro History Bulletin, a journal or a magazine that was directed specifically for teachers in high schools and colleges so that they could have materials to teach, because at the time we were not in anybody's literature book, any history book, etc.
Right. So, Clarence, when you said that initially, I thought about, how ignorant I was. I was a straight A student for 11 years. Skipped to 12th grade. I wouldn't have been a straight A student probably in 12th grade.
You probably would.
But I left Book Washington from the 11th grade and went to Lemoyne. But it was only when I went to Lemoyne that I learned that Lincoln did not free the slaves.
That's right.
It's just kept from us.
Right.
We learned everything. We learned Edgar Allan Poe. We learned, just everything. But the basic stuff that we really needed to know as young people, we didn't know. And that's why it's so important now for us to work with our young people today, because as we look at the situations and we say, the bad things, or so-called bad things, quote unquote, that are happening with our children is with a small percent, but it's that small percent matters.
Yes.
And that small percent portrays us as the whole. We broaden everything that's bad.
Well, again, a people that has been historically branded as negative, we constantly are looking for ways to keep justifying that group, particularly if that group is not in power. And in this country, that has been, the history of African American, what I call it, the American fruit with African root, has always been the basic question about what are we in this country, what are we going to do with them? From the founding of this country, the writing of the Constitution and the 3/5 compromise and the deleted clauses and the laws of Virginia and subsequent states, including Mississippi, which says one drop of Negro blood makes you Negro, and then down through the ages, Dred Scott decisions, all the way up to Plessy versus Ferguson, all the way into 1954, and even today, we still having to deal with Voting Rights Acts and those kinds of things. And
all the barriers, new barriers that they're putting up.
And so the question still remains: what are we going to do with the American fruit with African root? And that question is also before us in our leadership. What are we going to do with ourselves, and how are we going to position ourselves, and what do we say and what do we do? I think that young people learning about the history and the struggles of African Americans and how people overcame slavery, survived slavery, survived the black codes, survived under the color of law, when in the early days, just like today, police officers see you walking like a man, you have on your military uniform, you're coming home from the war where you went to fight for freedom and justice in the world. You go home to Kosciuszko, Mississippi, get off the bus. Before you can get home, you've been shot. Why? Because the cop asked you, where you going, boy? And you said, I'm not a boy, I'm a man. I fought for this country. And you did. Just because you stand up to say that you're a man.
Because you're a man.
Yes.
I also want to touch upon, you said you went to Booker T. Washington, right? And I think about the brother said about Bill Street and stuff like that. And really it is on us, because your education begins with knowledge itself. Before you learn 2 + 2 is 4, you must learn who you are, where you came from, and where you can go. You must instill that type of confidence in our people. And Marcus Garvey, our greatest black leader we ever had, understood that. That's why he was so effective. That's why he was so dangerous. He understood that the people must have knowledge itself, because you don't just perish because of lack of knowledge. You perish because of lack of knowledge itself. And I'm thinking about Booker T. Washington. I think about Lucy Campbell. That's the mother of gospel music. And also you look at the black church, Dr. William H. Brewster, who was Elvis' favorite minister, used to listen to his music. Move on up a little higher. But I also think about the fact that August the 4th marked the birthday of Louis Satchmo Armstrong. His second wife was from Memphis, Lil Hardin Armstrong, who was a proficient pianist for his mentor, King Oliver. She's the reason why he had a successful solo career, because he saw his talent and forced him to leave his boss, and they wrote the Hot 5 and Hot 7 recordings and stuff, made history, and she was his second wife, and she was from Memphis. And I think about the fact that, education is so important, especially music in our schools, and the fact that I'm presenting a paper on Jimmy Lunsford, who was arguably the first high school band director in Memphis City Schools history as a volunteer at Manassas High School, arguably started the first jazz studies program in any place in the world in Memphis, Tennessee back in the 1920s, teaching kids from New Chicago how to play this music, and then using his best students and buddies from Fisk University to start probably the greatest swing band of all time. This was the #1 band at the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. This was the house band for the Cotton Club. This is the band that Miles Davis and Horace Silver and Quincy Jones, quote, growing up on when they was listening to the radio broadcasting live from the Cotton Club. Okay. This started in Memphis, Tennessee back in the 20s. This man, Jimmy Lunsford. And then the fact that Miles Davis would take a portion of his autobiography to talk about the phenomenal sidemen like George Coleman and people like Charles Lloyd and Frank Strozier and Booker Little came out of this one high school in North Memphis. He said, what they doing down there to produce these type of people?
Yeah. And now people just think about Stax.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't think about all the other contributions.
That's right.
Carly, you're on the air. Thank you. Hi.
Hearing y'all talk about all the things that transpired and what's been going on about this racism. But I think we really need to touch on the black on black racism. Believe it or not, we have that. And I don't think we as black people are aware that we're doing it to each other. But we are.
Okay, when you, Carla, let me just kind of get a little clarity. When you say black on black racism, are you talking about how if you're dark skinned, you envy the light skinned person with the so-called good hair, or is that what you're coming from?
And then on the job,
the field person versus the person who worked in the house, and then
yeah, okay. And when you go to the job, we actually castrate each other on the job. Okay. So it's kind of, and to put it more plainly too, since A.C. Warden has been in office, I'm probably not saying his name right.
Okay.
I feel like I'm under the Henry Loeb thing again.
Have mercy.
I feel like he's in office again.
Wow.
By the way this man is reacting to us.
Okay.
Before Harrington left, we were not talking about we were all overweight and we didn't have jobs. Our jobs were so low. I just really don't think he's concerned about black people. Okay. And we are each other. I mean, we're looking the same, him and I.
Okay.
But he's not concerned about us.
Okay.
And I feel like it's racism. Okay. To me, black on black racism.
Okay. I'm just going to respond to you. Thank you for your call.
Two things I want to
before. You wanted to hold on?
No, but before I go.
I want to hear it, because I'm not at the radio now.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the first one, let's go back to the Bill Street thing, because I think sometimes our concepts, we get our concepts confused. Racism really is the capacity to use your beliefs about people to do something to them. Now, there is a lot of black self-hate, and it's understandable given where we've come from and the circumstances some of us have been in for a long, long time. So the issue of racism, I don't know if whether or not you can have black racists, but it certainly wouldn't be black people being racist toward each other, because the concept does not. That's not
what do you call it?
I say,
black hate.
Well, there's also classism within communities. You remember now that you have the haves and you have the have-nots. I don't care what you have. The people at the bottom also divide themselves into haves and have-nots. So that might be something there's too. But when we're talking about politicians and how we relate to politicians, I think we're partly talking about our own personal perspectives on politics. But I want to get back to the issue of Beale Street and the fact of whether or not we own Beale Street, etc. One of the persons that ASALH Memphis will be honoring at September the 9th is a man called Professor Nat D. Williams. And Professor Nat D. Williams said this. He said, Beale Street, my Beale Street, owned by Jews, policed by Poles, and enjoyed by Negroes. Now, if that's to be taken as fact, of what I understand, Nat D. Williams was the historian par excellence here in Memphis, particularly as it relates to African Americans in this country. The street was never owned by us, but we did have businesses there. But you also got to remember now, this was a time when we were under severe racism, under deep segregation, etc. We had a community, and within our community, we had, like you said, businesses, we had our venues, we had our relationships. But once desegregation came, many of those businesses were destroyed because black people ran to white people because we felt that made us better. And so today, even as you look at Memphis today, much of what is happening in Memphis today is a consequence of the fact that black people began to assert themselves in the 60s and 70s and began to get elected office. I don't know how many people realize this or not, but when Willie Harrington was elected mayor of Memphis, we lost 36,000 people who left Memphis and went across the border to Mississippi. And then subsequent to that, when we got school, well, first of all, it started with school integration. We lost 28,000 people, half of them to the outlying areas of Shelby County, and then to South Haven, Mississippi. I know this because when I lived in DeSoto County up until I was 24 years old, DeSoto County had 14,000 people in it, and 11,000 of those people were African Americans. Today, there are over 100,000 people in DeSoto County, and only 13% are African American. And it's not because these people came from other places. They left Memphis in droves because they were not going to interact with us. And I think you're seeing the same thing today with the development of these small municipalities in Memphis as it relates to not wanting to be with us. And I think what we have to do is sort through our own personal feelings about individuals, and then look at what is it that's happening to us as a people? Because let's say, if you get caught at night, they're not going to figure out whether you are educated African American or not. You are the victim, and let's pray that you will not be a victim of last chance.
Okay, Carla. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ron, you had something more to say after that?
Oh yeah, I want to say that we all can be prejudiced and biased. That's just being human. But to be racist doesn't apply to you have systemic control over other people's lives.
Exactly, have power.
Yeah, power.
That you can do something to somebody else, and then they can't do anything about it.
Right.
And that's so I don't think that black people in this country have that yet.
No, not yet.
Carla, you on the air. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, how you doing?
All right,
How
good.
are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I enjoy the program.
Thank you.
There's a lot of history here in Memphis. I noticed several buildings in Memphis has, one building downtown has Paramount on it, and another building has MGM Studios on the building. I think these two buildings contain some old films. I think people need to look into it and find out what's going on out there. And also, I have a problem finding like calendars and posters about the kings and queens of Africa. Do y'all know where I can go find it and buy that and purchase that?
You mean poster sets that depict paintings or drawings of historic African kings and queens?
Yeah, go back to the pictures and then the dates when the year that they reigned and the year that South reigned.
Right.
Like Black History
What's the
Month.
group down
It's
there
hard to
on
find
Bellevue?
posters that
The girl who had the restaurant.
And also, I think another idea would be good.
Right.
Memphis, rich history. I heard a long time ago that South Memphis used to have this, had a mayor of their own. It was separate from the main Memphis.
Well, you got to remember now. No, they were not. It was not an official municipality.
Right.
These were unofficial titles. Beale Street had its mayor. South Memphis had its mayor. North Memphis had its mayor. These were people who that people looked up to, who could deliver things to that community, or who were the spokespersons for the community. And sometimes they were simply people who were entertainers or who people looked to. They were kind of like griots who would tell the stories of the community.
Like my dad told me, he said Memphis used to be. He used to call Memphis the Harlem of the South when he was coming up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Memphis.
Like, it has a rich history. A lot of people have seen We have forgotten about it and overlooked it, and I think that's
Right.
that's sad.
Well,
Anyway, what can I give a postal or Canada?
Okay, well, two possible.
Hold on, caller.
Two possible sources right now. Java Juice and Jazz at Bellevue between Parkway and Kerr
In South Memphis.
in South Memphis might have those for you. And then there is the African American bookstore. Let's hope it's still there. That was in the mall on Winchester. What's that place? What's the mall?
A mall in Winchester?
Yeah, what's the mall that the church?
You talking about Hickory Hill?
Yeah, Hickory Hill Mall. There's a store there. Let's hope that it's still in existence. One of the things about historically we've had places like that in Memphis, but one of the things is once those places came in and set up business, they didn't get the kind of clientele they thought they would get, and so they actually left.
Like the bookstore in Mississippi and Walmart. It's
when
gone.
we involve ourselves with the European, I think that was a great mistake that could have been made.
Right. Now also too,
we had our own, like the doctors, lawyers, everything already set up for us. And I think the white man knew that, seen that, and he said, well, that's too much power. So, that's what happened. I think it was joining in with them was a bad mistake.
Okay, caller. Check out those two places here.
Enjoy the program. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm
Caller, you on the air.
How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm okay, and how are you guys?
Oh, we good.
Fine. How are you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Great, great. I'd just like to answer the question that the lady asked, what is racism?
Okay. Thank you, caller. Keep listening.
Will I be able to answer what racism is?
Yeah, okay, yeah, and let me get this other caller. They're going to answer you, and let me pick
No,
up
he
this
wants.
other-
He want to.
I'm going to explain what it is.
Oh, they will.
No,
You
I want to
want
do it myself.
you want to explain. Okay, you give me you got 90 seconds.
go ahead.
I already know it.
Okay, come on.
Okay. Racism is when one group of people have the power to tell another what to do, and if the white people say black people, you sit at the back of the bus. Black people never had the power. Now I'm just using an example of what it is, so the lady can understand what racism is, and that black people could never be racist because they do not have the power. And you let me know when my name is sucking up. Now. Black people never told white folks, you can't come to our school, you go to your own school. So again, at one time we could not be president. There's things that we couldn't be because we wasn't good enough and we didn't have the power to stop them from mistreating us. So now black people can never be racist, and so I'm trying to give her a better understanding of what racism is.
Okay, we understand. Okay.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you for your call.
I also want to add, the brother brought up like the history of Memphis being a Harlem of the South. I also want to take note that Hollywood did the first all-black movie production here in Memphis near Lamont Owen called Hallelujah back in the late 20s. Matter of fact, the director of the film, a white guy named King Vidor from Texas, he was nominated for an Oscar for that movie for Best Director.
Wow. Just keep using and using and using. Been doing it all these years.
Absolutely.
And is it? Are we allowing it to happen?
Well,
We don't have the power to change it. We don't have the money to do differently.
I think all of that and more. I think that sometimes when you are a people who have been despised, you might have what I consider an inferiority complex. One of Memphis's problem is that for years, Memphis did not deal with its most important resource, and that was its African American contribution. We ran from the blues and all that was attendant to that as a city. Consequently, other cities across this country took the blues and took all the stuff that was attendant to it, and they took off. Consequently, Memphis got left behind because if you don't use your most important resources and other folks get a hold of them, they are no longer yours.
Exactly.
And so you find now that many of the things that were connected with the African American historical tradition, Memphis did not want it. Memphis was a city, was what we call a plantation. Memphis was a plantation for a long, long time. And this is not coming from an African American. This is coming from a white female, Dr. Green, who out of the University of Memphis, who now at the University of Texas, who wrote a book called Battling the Plantation Mentality. And where she talked about all of the kinds of things that happened to people as they came to the city, what happened to all our cultural capital and all of that, and how the city tried to deny that for so long, tried to keep it underfoot, and in fact would arrest people for trying to assert that kind of stuff, and consequently Memphis got left behind. At one time, Memphis was much bigger than Atlanta, Nashville, and a whole bunch of other cities. But because of that, our present-day capital is dwindling, and that's because of some early historical mistakes on the part of all of us. The person earlier talked about white people putting integration on us. I'm not always sure if that is historically accurate. I think that one of the things we thought was that if, in fact, America was going to be what it ought to be, it ought to give us a seat at the table equal to everybody else's. And as long as it was separate, it was unequal. And therefore, but I think that we did not listen very well to those who were counseling us against desegregation. Zora Neale Hurston, masterful writer, wrote a piece or a letter to the newspaper in which she talked about what would happen if, in fact, integration would come. But again, the notion is that if you are considered the inferior race, your acceptance by the superior race is a criteria by which you judge yourself. And sometimes our judgments on some issues foreclose us in making good decisions on other issues, and that has been our history. But I do want, before this evening is up, to talk a little bit about what we're doing in Memphis to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the centennial year of ASALH, because I think that much of what we know about the contributions of African American, about what you talked about, the inventions and all those things had to be dug up. Those things had to be disputed and argued, because in many instances, those inventions and contributions had been attributed to white people.
That's right.
We had to go back in and dig, and like Dr. Woodson said, right. And so one of the persons that we're gonna that has trained folks to dig up things will be honored. He's a brother, God rest his soul, who is from Memphis, but a lot of people in Memphis don't know about him. His name was William Nelson. We call him Dr. Nick. William Nelson went to Douglas High School. He was from the Swearingen family, people who know him here. But Nick Nelson is known as the father of black studies in America. He is credited with helping to start the black studies movement in this country, became its national president, and produced more scholars and PhDs in that field than anybody else. And he's going to be one of the three people that we're going to honor, because what we're doing, we're honoring the ASALH, the organization, we're honoring its founders, we're also honoring three people out of Memphis who were in the spirit and legacy of ASALH. The other person I said was Professor Nat D. Williams, because he was a purveyor of African American history and culture. He is known for having taken his spin every Sunday to some historical place in town to explain it to his children. He's known for his Tan Town program, where he put on video and gave African Americans time to show their talents. He's known for being an editorial writer and a syndicated columnist. And I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but for a time, he was also the editor for the Memphis World and the Tri-State Defender. A lot of people don't know this, but he's the other person we're honoring. And one of the things that Woodson said was, for history to be accurate, it must be inclusive. In other words, if it's going to be accurate, it has to include the contributions of all people. Now, and then of course, in that inclusive, some of the writers have to be from the other groups as well. And so, Per Magnus, many of you may know, who had a series of articles for about 16 years in the Commercial Appeal and the Press Scimitar, she will be one of the other honorees. And our found honoree is institution, and that's Universal Life Insurance Company. Why are we honoring Universal Life Insurance Company? Well, for 17 years, Universal Life Insurance Company did something that every family, every school in this community in the Mid-South area looked forward to. That was the publication of the Negro History Calendar, one of the most enlightening and educational tools in the African American community for over 17 years. And they always said in that particular publication that these people in this booklet are but representatives of the black Americans who by their talents, their tools, and travails have contributed to America's heritage.
Right.
And that was the footnote in the Universal Life Insurance Company. Another one of those institutions in our community that went by the way because of desegregation.
Okay, tell the listeners again, because I hope that many of our listeners will be inspired to attend. That's September the 7th?
September the 9th, actually.
The 9th,
it's Wednesday, September the 9th. It's the Memphis Organizing Branch's celebration of the centennial of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. It's going to be at the historic Beale Street First Baptist Church, Beale Street.
Mm-hmm.
Many people pass that church not knowing its storied history. Mm-hmm. A part of our program that night is to tell the storied history of First Baptist Beale Street, a church that was a refuge, exactly. A church that was an auditorium, and historic First Baptist Beale Street is also located right next door to a historic church park and a whole bunch of other pieces of history. And as the people said earlier, much of Memphis now is a museum. Mm-hmm. There are museums all over this place representing the fact that at one time Memphis was the place to be. And Memphis is a significant place in the history of this country. Okay. And in fact, much of what happened to African Americans in America, much of it had to do with Memphis.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You got about a minute left. You also have a conference?
Yeah. This year, by the way, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History met here in Memphis last year.
Okay.
It was the 99th year, and the theme last year was justice. Mm-hmm. And this year, of course, they're celebrating the Center of Black Life, History, and Culture, and it's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, September the 23rd through the 27th, 2015. And on that Thursday, something is happening good for Memphis. The Memphis Organizing Branch of ASALH will become an official branch of the association once again. We had a branch here back in the early 70s, and they were responsible for the W.C. Handy statue in the park there. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be doing some great things coming up. And we're asking people who are interested in joining ASALH, they can contact us, or they can call us at 901-736-3091, or they can contact us through the National Association. But we will be there. The public is invited. We will have special guests and our honorees and historic First Baptist Beale Street. And I think that people need to know what that particular institution has represented and still does represent, and how we need to preserve our history. That is the mission of ASALH.
Okay. We're about to leave the air, but I do want to just mention that I will do a PSA for you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll mention it on WLOK, because many of our listeners might be asleep on Sunday night, and so we want everybody who we can reach to know about this. It's a wonderful event. Thank both of you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Sunday night. I know Clarence is in church all day, so
I went to some historical stuff today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Rainbow Push Memphis, and we just appreciate your attention. And for those of you who got a call in, we appreciate your input. And just remember that the push is still on, and I will be here with you next week if it is the Lord's will. So just stay blessed until then. But in the morning, just tune into the morning team at 6 o'clock right here at WLOK. Still a family tradition. And I'll see you next week.